Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the Spiritual Inspired Show. I am your host, Claudiu Murgan. For previous episodes, please visit Oraver's network, spiritualinspired.ca, and our YouTube channel. My guest today comes from a different community, from the financial one, and he's no other than Gregory Mannarino. Gregory, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are a well-known name, as I mentioned, in the financial world. You are very vocal about everything what's going on in the world. But today I want to touch on your soft side, if I can say so. And you are the second person from that community, the financial community. My previous guest was Lynette Zhang, and with her I was able to have a similar conversation about her spiritual side of her life. And this is what we will go through today, if possible. And we'll touch on the financial as well, because this is your passion. So I would like to start with a question about your near-death experience when you were 6 years old. How transformative was that experience for you?
I think a lot greater than I imagined, honestly. I didn't realize it, obviously, in the context when I was that young, but it changed me in ways I think I started to notice when I was, I guess, after that time, obviously, but I would say probably mostly when I was in my early teens, maybe just preteen era as well. I started to It started with honestly, this may sound kind of silly in a way, but with taking a notice to nature and being able to feel it in a way I think that other people couldn't. I started to see, realize I was able to see auras on people, different colors. I didn't know what they meant. I still don't clearly know what they mean. And when I discussed this with my parents at that time, my dad thought I was, just a kid going through some kind of a phase. But with my mom, I think at the time, as she was more in touch with that kind of reality, she kind of like embraced it and said, well, some people can see that and some people can. It doesn't make you any different, any more special than anybody else, just different maybe in a certain respect. So, I mean, I would say this though, the experience itself was amazing. Would I want to go through it again? Maybe in the same way, I guess. Uh, I don't know if it would be the same, but I think I know that it just opened up a door to say, well, there is something else here. There's something else there. And I realized it. I mean, I could see it like as it was yesterday. And a lot of people might not believe that, and here I am now going to be 61 years old. And I can remember that event as if it were yesterday, the way it felt, the way it was, my initial fear, the effect of feeling completely at ease and release at that moment. But yeah, it was definitely a profound moment, life changing, no doubt about it. And I think that maybe no doubt, it put me on a pathway. I think that most people don't get that opportunity to experience.
And you grew up in a Catholic family and surroundings, and did that somehow oppress your way of looking deeper into that type of experience?
It's interesting that you would put it that way. Let me say this. I felt like, we're all on a journey here, okay, to find. I don't think that people are going to, let me say this maybe in a way that, I would put it, find God in a box. In other words, find God through a specific set of rules or a specific dogma. I think that, I know that God holds the key and it's up to you to walk through that door. I went through a very extreme, I would say, um, search for truth and what was right for me. Um, and it's a never-ending thing, I think, for everybody. We all get pulled away from a particular pathway that we're supposed to be on. I think it's an individual thing. I'll be honest, and So, that growing up that way, that the Catholic Christian way, I think it opened my eyes to a lot of things here, but it was just a doorway that I walked through at that point here. And then like I said, I branched out everywhere looking, well, is this it? Is this the place I'm meant to be? And I mean, I was fascinated from a very young age about spirituality, religion, and belief systems. So I immersed myself is probably more a better word, and read everything I could, try to understand different perspectives, not just the ones that are very commonly known, but I looked everywhere, even in very dark places. I'm not afraid to admit that, because I think you have to, walk through hell before you get to heaven in some kind of a way. So yeah, I did take that pathway too, and learned a lot over there too. So all it did was lead, to me at least, to a greater awakening on the importance of establishing a personal relationship with God. That, I mean, it's not a cookie cutter thing. It's not like you do this, that, and the other thing. You follow these rules, you say these particular words, you perform a particular ritual, and all of a sudden you're closer to God. I think that if anything, it's the polar opposite. That's not going to bring you closer to God in any way, shape, or form. You get closer to God by a personal relationship, and I think that's really what I'm more focused on now. And well, I've always been. I think we all are on. No matter what dogma, whatever ritualistic kind of dogmatic religion, I guess you follow. And I think people today, and maybe more diverting from the classic kind of, again, dogmatic, ritualistic, uh, form of spirituality or whatever it might be, and more focusing on their individual relationship with God. And I think it's a beautiful thing. In some ways, I think it's an awakening, and I believe we are going through a serious transition right now. We're seeing what's unfolding, how people are suffering, and then it's being thrust upon them. And I just think that again solidifies the relationship that we have, not just with the source, but with each other. Oneness and unity. And I think that's really the most important message that I think most of us can take away from maybe something like this. At least for me, that's my perspective.
Yes, and I agree with you. And I always go back to one comparison, that one religion is not better than the other. Is the way how you approach it, and you approach your relationship with God. And I recently came back from Peru, and at one point I was at 17,000 feet above the sea level, and I realized that all of us who were there arrived by different means. Some of us use the horse up to a certain point on the path. Others, we started from the beginning very slowly, pacing ourselves due to lack of oxygen. Others, by their own reasons, ran a little bit. They suffered before the peak, but they ran. They tried that option as well. So again, we all go by different roads, by different means. But if the desire to reach that same point is there, then it doesn't matter how we reach it and how long it takes.
Beautiful way to put it, and that's exactly perfect. And that was exactly my own journey that I've been on and continue to be on. I'm not saying that I've reached the pinnacle and now all of a sudden I'm, what I know everything. I don't know anything. That's what I do know. I know that I don't rely on my own misunderstanding anymore, and I haven't for a very long time. As soon as we start to do that, we start to almost think of ourselves as being divine, and that is absolutely not the truth. And if we just follow the pathway, and we follow basic rules, I would say, love God, and that we'll all be okay. And once we start, having to deal with the situation that we're put into, yeah, a lot of people grow from that, and some people become very downpressed from it, and they enter periods of depression and anxiety, and this compounds itself because once you and I think we've all been there. I can't imagine a single person that hasn't been in that kind of a spot. But it's a choice at that point. What do you do? I think for people who have at least that understanding that there is a light there that is reaching to you and you're reaching for it, uh, whatever name you may call the source here, there's names that have been lost to history that will never recover. People have the different names and they think, well, if you don't use this name, well, then, then you're not a believer, you're wrong. And I mean, this is mentality, I think I call it devilism, but that's not the way it is. It's one source, one God, one people. And no matter how you get there, no matter how long that maybe for some reason, for some, it has to take a convoluted pathway and along that road, because we all learn differently. It's not every, you can, put a book in front of, 100 different people who are going to learn the concepts in different ways. And some people may read that book slower, some people may read that book faster and able to absorb it and whatever the connection that they make. But absolutely, that is a beautiful way to put it. I think we're all on that same pathway, and sometimes it leads us one way and leads us another way. And it's really true. I don't know a single person really that hasn't been through, let's say I was a great kind of a self-searching kind of, first here, I guess, kind of a thing. Who am I? What does it mean to be me or to be alive? What is my mission here on this earth? Is it to serve myself or is it to serve others? And, and then once people realize it's not anything about serving yourself, once you realize that we're put in here to serve each other and to serve God, then everything just opens up to you. Until that point, people are going to remain lost, at least in my opinion. This is just my take on it.
Yes, and the way I put it and the way I see it when I look in the mirror is I have to take care of myself. I'm the most important person in the world, so I can serve others. If we don't take care of ourselves, we cannot serve others. So that was the point then in just doing it for a short while.
Yeah, that's true. I don't see myself at all as the most important person in this world. I don't see myself any more important than a frog, than a bug, than a bird. I just see myself as another part of God's creation, or even than a tree or a leaf. I don't see myself as any more important than anything. But that's okay. I get your understanding of that. But to me, man, I tell you, I look at, I walk around and where I live here in Florida, and there's a lot of lizards and little creatures and stuff, and there are people that are very cruel to them. They step on them, they crush them. What gives them the right to do that? I don't know. They feel like they have that kind of power. I don't feel like I'm any greater than that. I've literally got down on the ground. This was just recently, and looked at a little frog, and I said, I am no greater than you. And once, I think for me, that it was an epiphany as well, realizing that, what, we're not. Me personally, I don't know. I like to think of myself as equal. I'm no smarter than anybody else. I've been put in this place for some reason here. I've always felt the kind of a drive to help people. There were times in my life when I felt the opposite too. There were times in my life when I was angry, very, very angry at God. Why? How did this happen? Why did you let this happen? Whatever it might be. I think we all go through that too. But it's all part of that growth pathway. But yeah, absolutely, man. You do have to realize you have to take care of yourself so you can take care of anyone else. That's important, absolutely. But I think to me, it's a collective thing that we have to realize our responsibility that I think God has bestowed upon us. We are custodians here. We've been given a job here to take care of God's creation here. He puts us here for a reason. What, to burn it down? No, to build it up. To from every aspect here, whether it's the most smallest form of life to the greatest here. The earth itself is a living thing. As some would believe that. I happen to believe that's true. I think all of creation is touched by God, therefore has his fingerprint on it, and therefore has the hallmark of life, and something that we should all care about. And no matter where people stand in this world, and that's the, look, man, the state, what does it do? It divides you by every mechanism that they can. It's a great deceiver, destroyer of mankind, and tries to put people in a position where they have to make difficult choices. But again, if we always just rely on our own understanding, then we're never going to get ahead of it. We have to always say, okay, like before this interview, before this talk that we're having here, I was like, God, give me the wisdom to speak rightly. Give me the words that you would want me to say. And I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of talks and interviews over the years, and I've always said that in my head first. I want to say something that touches someone in a way that makes sense to them. And it's not going to make sense to everyone how you or I speak, and that's okay. It goes back to that pathway you spoke about, which I think is a very profound thing.
Thank you. And while I was doing my research, in-depth research on you, Greg, I found that you practice medicine for 20 years, and that intrigued me to have such a big shift from medical field to financial. Why you did that? What motivated you?
I was in medicine for 20 years, as you know. I practiced as a PA, did emergency medicine most of my career, interventional radiology for a little bit. I did primary care as well. Um, and I really got a lot out of it for a long time. I felt like I was making a positive difference. I would leave at the end of the day saying, well, I did something good. Um, and I think the carryover to whatever it might be. I don't care if people dig ditches for a living, man. It doesn't. What are you doing? What is the contribution you're making to the greater collective good? Whether it's in the financial world, it touches everyone, and I don't. The draw to it. Well, from when I was a kid, I was. My dad got me into this from when I was a kid, into trying to understand, have a grasp on how it works. My dad worked on Wall Street when he was a young man, and uh, I don't know. I guess seeing the movie Wall Street is really what kind of said, "Hey, I really want to do that." I thought that would be something that was interesting, but my parents never gave me any direction. I'll be honest with you; they didn't say, "Greg, do this, do that, or the other thing." My parents were kind of like very like live and let live kind of people, and I think that's a problem to a certain degree. You need some kind of a direction, but at the same time, I think direction will find you if at least you have a good heart. Now, for me, practicing medicine in my capacity was a beautiful thing for a very, very long time, and I think I did make a positive impact on a lot of people's lives. At least I like to think so. But for me, it became a burnout at an extreme level. I became pre-diabetic, hypertensive. I was overweight. I was 50 pounds heavier than I am right now, and I was at an inflection point. I said, well, I have to do something else. But the interesting thing was that I was already transitioning to getting into back into the financial world. I worked when I was a kid. My first real job was working at Bear Stearns, which is one of the banks that failed. That went down during the financial crisis. But I worked there. I was a kid. It was way before that. But at least I got to see an inside perspective on a lot of things and how it worked. But then you get pulled in different directions. I think I went through the whole medical thing because that was the choice that was what was given to me at that point by a greater power. I really believe that. And now when I left medicine, I said, I saw people hurt. What happened to my best friends during the financial, even myself, I got wiped out. Whatever I had at that time, whatever I had built up in the market, during the financial crisis. And friends of mine, one of my best friends inherited a large sum of money from his father when his dad passed away. He went out, he invested it, lost it all, cost him his marriage, cost him everything. And basically that's how, it's the backbone of this whole thing. And I was angry. I was angry when I saw what was happening to people getting thrown out into the streets, people suffering like they are now, honestly. And it's about to get a lot worse. Unfortunately, we're going definitely through a tribulation of one kind or the other. And people better realize this is not just a financial situation, it's a spiritual war on multiple levels. But going back to that, and I was angry. So I just started talking about it. I went on YouTube and I started talking about this stuff. And people would say, well, how do you know this? This is amazing. Can you talk about this? And so it just took off. It really pulled me in. And I said, you know what? I'm making a real positive difference in people's lives by just putting these videos out. So that's kind of where I think I need to be. And, as it seemed to work out that way. I mean, my voice is known. I'm Greg Nobody, but people connect with what I say. And I believe and I know that I've made a positive difference in people's lives by having them understand the financial system, how it works. Most people do not understand at all how the system works, what's behind it, the drivers behind it, and how it's, especially right now, crushing people from the inside, not just here in the United States, where people are in the entire world. We're all feeling the same thing. And this mechanism is I mean, I'm going to sum it up in one word. It's diabolic. It really, really is. And people better start turning around. They better start. Maybe it is a wake up call for some people, and I think it is on many levels here. But yeah, man, I just got kind of pulled into it, and it didn't. I didn't search for it. It kind of reached out to me and said, "Okay, this is it. This is what I want you to do." I really feel that way because it would be no other reason why I would be here. No other reason at all. So, and hell, I'm on your show.